Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Merkakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity, and shout out to Yakims out there on the four corners of the earth proclaim this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Merkakadash, Brakatum. So, as you see in the background, the so-called Free Syrian Army flag, right? Is Syria free? Is it really a nice, peaceful place where the Syrians have life, or is it something that's been dismantled and destroyed? Is there war still going on? Are the people still not being murdered on the streets by the new Syrian interim government run by the Israeli state and the U.S. as they overthrow the Syrian government? Well, like everything else, though, as you should know, the so-called ceasefire, that lasted about 3 hours. The Israeli state had already violated the ceasefire on 3 different notes of the 10-point peace plan proposed by both Iran and the U.S. That was agreed upon, even though they are trying to renege, and the Israeli state, you know, they're madman, spare none, right? You know, but nonetheless, though, the U.S. is just pretty much, well, they slapped tariffs against Iran, too. Yeah, 50% tariffs on it, all countries that are doing business with Iran, just as the ceasefire was violated. You know, acted like the Iran broke the ceasefire deal, but it was really the Israeli state, which are the dogs that they couldn't control. You know, can't you keep your dog in line? You know, because, hey, King Bibi is the one pulling all the strings and has started World War III, and, you know, at least the flock drawing them out, right? So, anyhow, this is not the end of the war. Even King Bibi declared this is not the end of the war. Hell no, you know, and like everything else, so, you know, he's going to come down having great wrath, knowing that he has but a short time. King Bibi, if this war ever ended, he would face trial. He's not going to face trial. He's never going to be held accountable. See, the Most High is going to send Yahweh Shai and the angels to hold him accountable. You know, these bunker boys, they're all going to be captured and killed. You know, so it looks like King Bibi probably is alive. I mean, even though he was believed to be unalived, you know, he's just nothing else but a coward who hides in bunkers, just like Chump, who's also known as the Bunker Boy. So, you know, let's hear what these pedophiles have to say, right? As they hide in their bunkers.
The United States has announced a 2-week ceasefire with Iran. The war on the Islamic Republic may not be over yet. In the hours leading to the ceasefire on April 7th, both the U.S. and Israel escalated strikes on Iran. Israeli strikes targeted 10 rail sections and bridges across the Islamic Republic. Separately, a wave of American strikes hit military sites on Kharg Island, Iran's main oil exporting hub. U.S. President Donald Trump even renewed his threats, saying that a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again, if Iran doesn't agree to his demands, which centered around reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The strategic waterway, responsible for 1/5 of the world's energy shipments, was opened before the start of the war more than a month ago. Trump would later announce the ceasefire himself less than 2 hours before his 8 p.m. Eastern Time deadline for Iran to reopen Hormuz. Iran's Supreme National Security Council confirmed that talks with the U.S. will begin on April 9th in the Pakistani capital of Islamabad, cautioning that the negotiations do not signal the end of the war. The Council said that the talks, which may last up to 15 days and can be extended by agreement, aim to finalize details of its 10-point proposal, which includes provisions on transit through the Strait of Hormuz, preservation of the right to enrich uranium, sanctions relief, and withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from bases in the Middle East. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who helped broker the ceasefire, also announced that in addition to Tehran and Washington, their allies agreed to an immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and elsewhere. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office issued a statement welcoming the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, while stressing that it does not cover Lebanon. A wave of ballistic missiles was launched from Iran and Israel just before the ceasefire entered into effect. 2 people were wounded in the southern settlement of Tel Shiva. There were also reports of Israeli strikes on the Islamic Republic. Iranian missile strikes also targeted Gulf countries amid the announcements. Saudi Arabia's Jubail Industrial Zone and the United Arab Emirates Habshan gas complex were both hit. There were also reports of an attack on Qatar. While the ceasefire represents a chance to de-escalate, the war is not over yet. The US and Iran are still far apart on many issues, and Israel will likely attempt to sabotage the upcoming talks in Pakistan. The Islamic Republic will likely take advantage of the ceasefire to rearm and reorganize, but both the US and Israel will be doing the same.
So, like everything else, though, it's just a pause as the Passover has concluded, right? But the war is not over. Trump threatens to resume Iran war after throwing ceasefire into chaos, like everything else, though, because the Israeli state violated the ceasefire. Of course, they're trying to throw the blame game onto Iran. Trump officials contesting parts of the ceasefire with Iran, including whether it applies to Lebanon, whether the Israeli state on Wednesday killed more than 250 people because of their relentless attacks against Beirut. Chaos surrounding fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran deepened on Wednesday after the Trump administration appeared to undercut key terms of the deal and threatened to resume war unless Tehran complied with Trump. You mean that they have to capitulate to Iran because, who has the upper hand here? Who wants the Strait of Hormuz open? Strait of Hormuz used to be free, but like everything else, so they started their war of terror against Iran, and so therefore Iran was able to take a strategic point. Israeli state refuses to end its bombardment of Lebanon, killing at least 203 people in its heaviest bombing of the country since the war broke out. The Iran-U.S. ceasefire terms are clear and explicit. The U.S. must choose ceasefire or continued war via Israel. Iran's foreign minister Agashi wrote on social media. So like everything else, though, Trump's vice president denied agreeing to a truce with Hezbollah and claimed that there had been a misunderstanding between the two sides. So, trying to, blow smoke up their ass. Basically what it is, though, is that, they need time to reform because Iran is kicking their fucking ass. Their ass has been whooped. Their ass just got fucked. Because like everything else, though, everything they tried to throw at Iran, Iran survived and showed that they could respond to everything. Absolutely everything. Made it to comply with Florida age verification digital ID law. See, like everything else, though, they're passing other shit while everybody's distracted. Right? Because even World War III can be a distraction. So, they can usher in the MOTB via all these other things. State wants to protect children online first. Needs every adult in Florida to hand over their ID. Gotta have ID verification because, oh no, there may be perverts about. Yeah, the perverts are happening to be in D.C. themselves. Trump is one of the greatest child molesters of all time. That's why Operation Epstein Fury came out because, like everything else, though, he's a fucking child molester, and these wacky-tacky Christians don't even fucking tackle that he's a fucking child molester. They'd rather protect a pedophile than admit that they're wrong. You see? Who refuses to repent here? Who has taken the name Christian and distorted it, right? You see, Christian is really supposed to be Israelite follower of Yahushai. That's what it's supposed to mean. It was a derogatory term given to us by the Romans. But now, like everything else, though, it's been flip-flopped and it's been brought out by the false prophet that Christians represent these wacky-tacky ones, which are nothing more than Edomite supremacy. With the image of Cesare Borgia, and then, be a pussy, and, he's all about love, and he's about showing love and spreading love worldwide. That's not the God of the Bible. He has very much indignation for these people. And he's showing it. He's showing it with everything that's going on. No matter what, he can't hide himself. He's a fucking pedophile. He's a pervert. And he's been discovered worldwide. And shameful spewing is shown worldwide. That's why it's been nicknamed Operation Epstein Fury. Because he's trying to hide his pedophilia with this war. What Florida calls child protection, also the construction of statewide identity verification system via the internet, made us one of the biggest companies lobbying for age verification. So like everything else, though, you'll give up your identity and everything else, though. Now, It's just getting everything ready. It's just getting everything ready for the MOTB. Law signed in by Governor DeSantis in 2024, passing bipartisan support. Spent 2 years tied up in court before becoming enforceable this March. So, like everything else, though, now you have to show your real ID, So, like everything else, though, as you can see, the ceasefire has already fallen apart. As this goes into, there is no ceasefire. And they're passing in draconian laws, passing in the MOTB, as this goes into.
All right, there is a lot of confusion going on about what exactly is happening with this 2-week ceasefire between Iran and the United States. Israel said last night that they're going to keep bombing Lebanon and Iran. And so Iran started shooting missiles back at Israel. And then Fox News spun it that Iran had broken the ceasefire deal. I'm not siding with Iran. I'm watching this happen in live time. It's not debated. But Fox News and others that are pro-war are targeting people that are low information viewers. And it's so ridiculous when you're just dealing with facts and people, not just Fox News, but influencers and people, they want to just believe whatever delusional crap they want. Last night, this morning, oh, look, Jones, you said Trump was about to commit war crimes, and now they made a deal. This is a great victory. Is that why Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin are freaking out? No, this is a terrible repudiation of Israel and the war. Iran has basically gotten everything it wants in the agreement because Trump was desperate to open the Strait of Hormuz. This is a huge black eye to the United States. I'm glad that Trump didn't engage in increased war crimes or, quote, destroy entire civilization. But this thing, 39 days in, is a total and complete disaster, and we have been right about it. But you've got one group of pro-war people saying this is a great victory and everything's fine, even though the ceasefire's already fallen apart. You got other people, the Israel First warmonger, Greater Israel lobby, saying that this is a total disaster, which it is, but it's a lesser disaster than Levin last weekend calling for Trump. Well, the Pentagon says it might kill 100,000 U.S. troops to take Iran. Let's just use nukes. And then Trump says, I'll obliterate your whole country, your whole civilization. It'll never come back. The definition of genocide. Experts go, that sounds like nukes. They go, oh, you're crazy. Nobody wants to use nukes. No, you just have part of the Pentagon pushing nukes. You've got Israel pushing nukes. You've got Israel top Knesset members and the top deputy of Netanyahu on TV saying days ago, we want to use nukes. When you say we'll destroy your whole civilization in one day and you'll never come back from it, what is that? And
gaslighting,
oh, we got things worse than blowing up your bridges and your power plants. Well, what is it? Well, we're not going to tell you. But believe me, you don't want to know. And J.D. Vance saying the same thing. So I shot a video this morning at 7:30 and posted to X and said the ceasefire is not holding. This is a major strategic defeat for the United States. We were induced into this by Israel, but it was the lesser of evil decisions that could be made. And then the average American can't even figure out what's real because Trump's all over the map. And we also have Trump.
He wants to fuck your children up the ass.
That Iran put out that we say we agreed to, we didn't really agree to that, but we got another deal that we can't let you see it. I mean, what? This is disastrous mismanagement. But there's still time to correct. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
So basically, he's a sodomite trying to save himself. Just like King Bibi is held before an international criminal court, trying to save themselves before the trial continues, right? Because they're both on trial. You know, the more that King Bibi goes down, the more he takes Trump down. So, keeping this war going is the only way. It's the only way to save an ass from getting fucked. Because you know what happens to pedophiles in prison. They get fucked up the ass too. As if Trump will ever see that. As if King Bibi will ever see that. But nonetheless, though, it's coming, though. They will serve slavery for 1,000 years. They will serve slavery. These bunker boys. These pedophiles that think they got away with everything. Cost of living dominates many nations' biggest worries. According to Consumer Insights, prices and the cost of living are considered the biggest challenge in around half of the 32 countries included in a recent survey. It's also true for the U.S., where the issue marks first among the 18 surveyed options, with 50% citing it as main concern. The issue is also collectively seen as the biggest problem facing Alcatralia, Japan, Germany, and, believe it or not, Saudi Arabia. You would think they're oil-rich. Oh, wait, they can't sell their oil because it's all being blocked. On purpose. On purpose. See, you take you take the juice. I mean, they betrayed Palestine and all kinds of other countries, making a truce with fucking Esau and Amalek long before 1948. They betrayed them by allowing Palestine to be destroyed in 1948. Saudi Arabia was a big time player in that. So they're paying the price for, taking the juicy juice, as you would say. However, that is not the case everywhere. In Spain, 59%, in the Netherlands, availability housing is perceived as a significantly more pressing challenge. The same applies to crime in Brazil, 62% in other Latin American countries, as well as to the economic situation and unemployment cited most often in Italy and in India, 52% of respondents. So pretty much so, you're seeing a worldwide economy in shambles, in some places worse than others. But it's happening, So like everything else, so this is a live lesson going on now. There will never be peace on earth as long as the wicked are still in rule. Esau has to come to his end in order for there to ever be peace. And the peace agreement just kind of fucking broke apart in like a 3-hour tour. Yeah, that didn't even fucking last that long, before it was already violated. But unlike everybody else that just sits on the sidelines and say, oh, we condemn this, now they're holding them accountable. Iran is firing back on everything. They're not just condemning their actions, they are actually doing something about it, more than just saying, I condemn the actions, because that's all that you ever heard before, with the relentless war against Gaza and Palestine, just pretty much Lebanon and Yemen. We condemn the actions of the Israelis, but the Israelis, we condemn the actions of them taking territories in Syria. We condemn, but you don't do anything about it. Well, now they're doing something about it. And like everything else, though, the script has flipped. Everybody knows who the real terrorists are. And they're not Muslims. They're fucking Israelis. These fucking Zionists. These gutter rats. And they know that the Edomites help the gutter rats. It's shit on shit. People trying to hide their identity because they're nothing more than pedophiles that want to take your children and want to fuck them up the ass. That's pretty much who you got running everything. These fucking gaylords, these fucking sodomites running everything. That's why it's called the place of Sodom in Egypt, by the way.
St. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, and it reads, "Think not that I am come to send peace on the earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword." First and foremost, I want to give all praise and glory to the Heavenly Father, His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakawadash. Next, double honors to the head apostles / elder bishops of Great Millstone, the one that taught us the 100% truth according to the Bible. Peace, blessings, and safety. So all you sincere items, keep pushing, keep believing, keep your faith. Regardless of people here for a bear now. Yeah, peace talks with the United Snakes, Iran, and small tops. And you can talk all you want to. You can sit at a round table, grab the microphone and say, you're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and I'm going to come to an agreement, I'm saying, let's write this down, let's write that down. What is the Lord saying? That's what it's all about. That's what we need to be paying attention to. What the Lord is saying. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the true biblical Hebrew Israelites according to the Bible, what is the scripture saying? Look, focus on that. What is the scripture saying? Let's get it again. St. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34. There will be no peace. There will be no peace. Let's get this. Let's just get this. Something quick by the head, our Lord willing. Get this daily bread. Just something quick. Everybody got smiles on their faces. Just peaceful times again. Happy days are here again. No, stop. 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 Before you even start that song, just stop, man. No. There's no peace to the wicked, says the Lord. No peace, man. This is just so quick. About to head out. Bombs gonna drop, man. Bombs gonna drop, bodies gonna pop. You know what I'm saying? Or bodies gonna drop, bombs gonna pop. Whichever one, boom, 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 boom. Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter goes to that. It's a time of war, it's a time of peace. I'm looking at shit blowing up now. Boom, 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 boom. I'm looking at stuff. Truce with Iran tested over question about what is in it. It's the destruction is in. That's what it is, man. Ceasefire in jeopardy over Lebanon strikes. It ain't gonna be no peace. We're in a time of war. Think not that I come to say peace. So let's just get this. Proverbs chapter 23. Proverbs chapter 29. I'm excited, so just bear with me. Proverbs chapter 29. We're living in some beautiful times. Deadly serious times, trying times. Times of tribulation, anarchy, chaos, and mayhem, doom and gloom, spookiness, wookie, and all these things. But wait, there's more. We're living in all those times, but beautiful times nonetheless. We're watching and witnessing the end of an era. All right, it's all coming to its climax. And then Proverbs chapter 20. And remember, before these things spring forth, we told you of it. The Lord put His Spirit on us to tell you about it. Starting off with the beloved elder apostles, the beloved elder bishops of great millstone, and men on down. That's why we tell you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Americans to stay with one group. Got these blenders. Israelites out there still blending. Confused on no way. Watch one group. Cause you try to watch, especially when you just not coming, you ain't seasoned enough, you ain't grounded and rooted to know who's telling the truth and who's lying. Stick with one group. That's all you got to do. Look, or not. You got one group saying God loves everybody, who they equally call God, of course. He loves everybody. Everybody can make it. You can have SEX on the Sabbath. Don't say, don't worry about it. Why you waiting on all this nonsense? You can call the Lord anything. That's confusion right there. One group saying we're living in peaceful time. Buy some land. Land blitz. We're gonna land blitz. You got another group bringing out. You know what I'm saying? You got Great Millstone bringing out what I just brought out. Think not that I come to say peace on earth. We bring out Hebrews the 13th chapter, verse 14. We have no continuous city. We bring out what the scriptures say. Is a man, because that's who's supposed to be teaching the Bible, not no woman. Is the man that you listening to speaking according to the Bible, because there's no light in him. Isaiah 8:20. All right? Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Then you got something to celebrate about. When righteous rulers are ruling the earth. But when the wicked bear rule, the people want. So who's ruling the earth? The earth, the globe, the ball. Who's ruling? The wicked. So people within the earth are going to do what? They're going to mourn. And I want to get this right quick. It's just so quick. Ain't going to be nothing long. Sirach chapter 10, just hitting the point. Sirach chapter 10, verse 2. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. So the people pretty much mimic the ruler. You got a righteous ruler. The people on the earth are going to mimic the righteous ruler. You got a wicked ruler, a cutthroat, a crook, a thief, a swindler. I'm just trying to think. A thug. You got a thug ruling the earth. Everybody loves a thug. You got a thug ruling the earth. How you think everybody going to me? If that's the only thing you promoting on the TV, that's all the images that you see, just crooks, criminals, thugs. That represents the ruler. That's the energy he's going to portray to the earth. A righteous ruler is going to promote righteousness upon the earth. Right? Let's continue. Carry on. An unwise king destroys his people. So who's ruling the earth right about it? An unwise king. So it ain't going to be no peace. He's going to destroy the people with his mind state. See his antics. His way of living. And it's all by design, because the people that's ruling the earth, they was created to be the wicked. They're crooks. They was created to be a bad guy. He's ruling the earth right about now. The earth was given into the hands of a bad guy. A madman. You see? A crook, a thief, a swindler.
Got to keep the lunars on the pot.
Is ruling the earth. A natural born. What would the Ice Cube say? Natural born killer. No, that's who's ruling the earth right about now, right?
Yep.
So there ain't gonna be no peace, man. What it say? An unwise king destroys his people, but through the prudence of, no matter how much they say peace and love, we're gonna build back better. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna make your life better. The majority of y'all gonna become millionaires, trillionaires, and billionaires. But every time I turn around, I'm gonna become a homeless every day, right? They're always talking about somebody's in the water, you know what I'm saying, selling DRUGS. So we gotta blow that boat the hell up. That nonsense. There's people out there just fishing. Anything to help the narrative out, right? Anything to help the narrative. We say, never let a good crisis go to waste. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? People don't understand. An unwise king destroys his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord. So the Heavenly Father, no sense through his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, they controlling everything, right? The power of the, and the water, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai for that too. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over one that is profitable. Right about now, the earth is not profiting. The earth ain't yielding its fruit because the wicked is ruling the earth. Everything dead. You think peace is coming to the earth when you can't even find a grape with seeds in? Come on, man. You can't even find real food. Well, yeah, you think peace is coming to the earth? Come on, man. But in due time, the Lord going to set one over the earth that's going to actually profit the earth. Right about now, you got somebody over the earth that's going to destroy the earth. He's taking peace from the earth. Matter of fact, I'm just flow for a little bit. We'll say the most. Matter of fact, let's get this a prayer of Azariah. Let's get this. Let's get this. A prayer of Azariah is only one chapter. Let's see what verse it is. Hold on. I'm just looking through. I'll just hold on. Right here. This is who's ruling the earth right about now. Peace is not coming. I'm looking at the news now. All I'm seeing is serial deleters, right? I got a little clip. I'm saying I'm gonna do something on Lord willing. On my lunch break, Lord's willing. It's serial deleter. You know what I'm saying? He deleted 8 females. That's just what they're reporting. He deleted 8 females. You females, you better walk circumspectly out there. You know. And he just had some females go to where they went to so one of them islands. Met a dude at the club. You know what I'm saying? One of them met a dude at the club. He was buying them drinks and all that. And so you know, both of them ended up deleting. Okay. They're taking trips and all right. Don't even worry about it. The wicked is ruling the earth. Prayer of Azariah 1 and 9. And thou didst deliver us into the hands of lawless enemies. So who's ruling the earth? Lawless enemies. Our enemies are ruling the earth. Most hateful forsakers of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai. They get their marching orders from the spiritual demon Satan, man. Sleazy Esau Edom. Starting off with the elite banking families, the Rothschilds, the Gettys, the Bloombergs, I call them the Doombergs, the Oppenheimers, the Chicken Grewers, the DuPonts, the Bushes, the Clintons. They get their marching orders from the spiritual demon Satan.
And that's why this place is called Great Satan. Iran knows this. The Persians know this as Great Satan. Great Satan is ruling the earth. You know, and like everything else, though, you know, with Great Satan ruling, he's just, you know, his economy is destroyed. And it's all being done on purpose to usher in the MOTB. You know, so he can have his final choke point on everybody. You think the Strait of Hormuz is the worldwide choke point? It's just the beginning of things. No, he wants to put a micro C-hip inside of everybody. So that way he can have full control. These fucking goddamn pedophiles want full control of everyone. Is the dollar collapsing? 8 key indicators you can't ignore. Well, this is all being done purposely. So that way, cash will be eliminated. No credits are good. No, you have to take the government ID, just like the whole age verification ID, all of it working together for one global ID, which will be an implantable micro C-hip to make sure you're in full compliance. It's all about compliance, right? 8 key indicators to watch as the U.S. government falls deeper into the self-perpetuating debt spiral. And this is all being done on purpose. And remember, they just barely got out of an agreement. You know, that partial government shutdown ended somewhere in the middle of March, in the middle of the war, which, by the way, the war is still going on. They're just calling it the Iran war because, yeah, it starts with Iran, but like everything else, though, now it's expanded, right? Because we're talking about Hezbollah and Yemen joining in. Eventually Russia, but now Russia and China just recently said that if the Israeli state were to have used nuclear weapons against Iran, that they would use nuclear weapons against the Israeli state. So that's part of the reason for a back down as well. Important to note that these projections rest on the ridiculous assumption that there will be no more wars, recessions, or other events that drive additional federal spending. That assumption is already out the window with the war on Iran. The Pentagon has requested an additional $200 billion for starters. You know, so you can see where all these numbers are, right? The federal debt has exceeded $39 trillion, representing 124% of the GDP. I mean, it's just a downward spiral. I could keep on reading this, but you get the general idea, and that's just what they're allowing you to know. It's way beyond 39 trillion. It's like over 50 trillion. And so like everything else, well, we've been telling you for a long time that Babylon the Great, its hegemony, we're seeing the very ends of it as this video goes into. So its economy is being taken out on purpose to usher in the MOTB. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Welcome back, everybody, to Neutrality Studies, tonight again with the always fantastic Colonel Douglas McGregor. Colonel, welcome back.
Hey, happy to be here.
Thank you for coming online. And, today we're speaking on April the 8th. Donald Trump and the Iranians actually just declared a ceasefire on both sides. Both of them are declaring victory. Yesterday, 24 hours ago, Donald Trump was still threatening basically the annihilation of the Iranian nation, something that a lot of people took as a direct threat of using nuclear weapons. And a lot of people on Twitter have invoked the 25th Amendment to say that Donald Trump should be removed from office. And now the ceasefire, both sides, what do you make out of it?
It much depends on whether or not you think the United States holds the strategic initiative or you believe that Iran holds the strategic initiative. In my estimation, Iran's principal goal throughout this entire conflict has been to survive, to defeat the attacks against it, to punish American allies and supporters of the region, and to survive. So based on that assessment, I see Iran as holding the strategic initiative, not us. And I think that you've got an almost insoluble problem for us. We are a World War II force structure designed to refight some version of World War II. The last time that happened was Desert Storm in 1991. We should have undergone profound reorganization, reform, and change in the military. We did not. Everybody has worshipped at the altar of Desert Storm ever since, and everybody talks in terms of World War II. Iran is very different. Iran had to make some decisions 20, 25, 30 years ago about what they would and would not do. We know they have effectively no Air Force. We keep talking about having destroyed the Air Force. Well, they have none. Then we talk about destroying the Navy. They had 7 old frigates, but they have a lot of other smaller boats, and they have unmanned systems at sea. That was their answer to the Navy. They appear to have lost the 7 frigates. No one seems to have lost a lot of sleep over that. They were quite old and antiquated, but again, we go back to old metrics. Well, we sank this, we destroyed that, and then we destroyed, we say, some 7,000 targets. Well, that presumes that the targets are meaningful. And then when you run out of quote-unquote meaningful military targets, you have won. Well, there's no evidence for that. Iran, on the other hand, invested heavily in missiles and unmanned systems, drones, and that has paid off handsomely because Iran is a natural fortress. It's a continental power with 93 million people surrounded by mountains and bordered to the south by deserts. How do you invade Iran? Hasn't worked out very well for anybody, certainly not since Alexander the Great. I don't know of anybody that has tried to invade it since the Mongols. And of course, the Mongols were willing to do things that no one else in history would do, including mass murder, at least until we get to the Second World War and then more recently to Gaza. So I think the Iranians hold this.
Mongols is another term for Amalek, by the way.
Much longer. They have been much more successful than we thought they would be. And our efforts have been largely futile. And in the meantime, we blame Iran for closing the Straits of Hormuz. No, that's wrong. Lloyd's of London did that. No one is going to underwrite any shipping until the war is over, or there is a complete cessation of violence. We keep saying, well, Iran stopped this, and Iran's caused this. No, it's not true. People in the United States seem to forget Israel began this conflict, and then we joined Israel and got into it. Iran didn't attack us, and Iran didn't attack Israel. So the bottom line is, this is a very strange set of circumstances, and now the ceasefire comes along, and it came along at a very odd time after all these bellicose threats. And the more I look at this, the more persuaded I am, and others, if I look at what evidence we can find out there, I think that the CIA contacted the ISI in Pakistan and said, here's a proposal we'd like your leadership to make. And so they took this proposal, apparently virtually word for word what we had written, and sent that to the Iranians and then sent it to us, creating the illusion that somehow or another we were approached to do this by Islamabad on behalf of Iran. The Iranians never asked for a ceasefire. There's no evidence of that at all. Never. In fact, on Monday, they reiterated their 10 points, and Witkoff said, this is a catastrophe. We can't possibly accept any of this. Now, all of a sudden, as part of the ceasefire, we've said we will negotiate, and we will do so on the basis of the 10 points that Iran has submitted. That's a catastrophe if you're an Israeli or an agent of Israel. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. And then we discover that Witkoff and Kushner are going to go back to Islamabad and theoretically represent the United States, when everybody has concluded they're Israeli agents, and they represent exclusively the interests of Israel. Nobody wants them anymore for that very reason. Now, this is not new. When Tony Blinken was the Secretary of State, the Egyptians and others in the region all concluded he was an agent for Israel. They didn't see him as representing us either. So I don't know what to make of any of it, but I have very low expectations. And I don't think this is going to fundamentally change a great deal. And as far as I can tell, the military buildup on our side continues.
Right. Hey, very brief.
So, like everything else, you see that pretty much that there ain't no ceasefire. You know, it's definitely terms that the U.S. never even agreed to begin with. You know, and you know about her, MTG. You know, that's her name, Marjorie something. Tells Alex Jones it's time to burn the Republican Party to the ground because the majority of foreign agents working for the Israeli state. So there it is. You know, even she's saying it, you know. And she used to support Trump, but she stepped down a couple months ago because Trump did not represent the very things that she believed on, you know. So we'll play some of this because she got into quite a bit.
About the Republican Party. The Republican Party needs burned to the ground. It's completely controlled. As a matter of fact, much of Congress is controlled by AIPAC and by Zionists, and that is a serious problem. I fear that we will see a nuclear bomb used on Iran, and I think that'd probably be the worst thing we could see in our lifetimes, is a nuclear bomb used on anyone. You save American troops' lives by get the hell out of the Middle East. We had no business there to begin with. And the truth is, look, you may have supported President Trump for 10 years like I did, like you have, but this is not the same man. This is not the same man that we supported.
Because he's a pedophile
that's
caught.
Popular things.
Caught with his pants down, fucking children in the ass.
Mass deportations, Doge, these were in America First, lower inflation, lower the cost of living. Those were the core components of the campaign. That, and my God, gut the deep state. That was what we wanted so bad. Hold
a racist sodomite.
For the love of God.
So that's what Edomite supremacy is. It means that anybody who's not an Edomite, that you have the right to fuck them up the ass. You have the right to do everything, to rape their women, to steal their children. That's what you have a right to do. And that's why he's formed ISIS. And he's, you know, I should say reformed ISIS. ISIS has existed a lot longer than that. You know, ISIS, they're the same things. You know, these are nothing but pedophiles that show their Edomite supremacy. But that's all coming to an end, you know. It's all coming to an end. Esau's exposed. He cannot hide himself. And like everything else, so it's just a pause before escalation. The war's not over. King Bibi already said that. So like everything else, you know, when they shall say peace and safety, then come the sudden destruction. Yeah, we're at that tipping point. But they have to usher in the MOTB, and you can see that they're doing this behind the scenes. War is peace, and peace is war. You know, because that's how Esau gets down.
Let's get more analysis on this topic with former U.S. Army officer Stanislav Krupivnik. Thank you for joining us on the program today. So, this is what we have. We have the U.S. declaring victory, Iran declaring victory, and even the UAE have said they've come out on top in this war. It's so good that we have so many winners, isn't it? But let's be real for a moment. From your point of view, who's the real winner and loser from a strategic perspective here?
Well, you know, I'll start by saying I just hope this ceasefire at least lasts through Orthodox Easter.
Wishful thinking.
So we can at least have the second half of this week of peace. The 10 points that are agreed upon, or supposedly agreed upon, look, never mind Israel already broke one of them because they're not stopping the genocide in Lebanon. They're continuing that. The other points, well, the reparations from the U.S. via tariffs for passing the Straits of Hormuz, that's probably something that Washington can swallow relatively easily because American companies, by the way, don't particularly bring any oil and gas in from that, and it'll hit mostly America's vassals, so that's not that bad for the Americans. However, leaving the Persian Gulf, the United States is not going to do. Sanctions relief, you can forget about it. I mean, Congress has to pass that, and I think most congressmen would rather eat their own liver than pass a bill like that to relieve sanctions. We've seen that America is very quick to put sanctions on. It's very, very slow to terminate sanctions. Compensation outside of that cost of doing business by passing the tolls, by passing through the Straits of Hormuz are absolutely out of the question. There's no U.S. congressman that's ever going to sign off on paying reparations. The U.S. has never paid reparations for any of the destruction it's left in the wake of its little adventures all over the world. So from that point of view, I don't really think this is going to last for those points. Now, having said that, we've got to look at what is Washington's big plan. I don't honestly believe that Washington is looking for peace. They may be looking for a timeout to rearm and prepare for another round, but I really don't believe Washington has suddenly seen the light and said, you know, our ways are wrong, let's have peace. It's just not what Washington does.
Yeah, I mean, you've just given me an extensive list why the 2-week ceasefire won't work out. Whether the two sides will actually make it to Friday to those talks in Islamabad is also in question. Let's talk about this rearming period that you talk about. I mean, ceasefires have been known, as we've seen with the Ukraine crisis, that this is a period when countries used to rearm and regroup. Is 2 weeks enough time to do that, though?
Well, considering the U.S. is still bringing in assets from everywhere around the world, pulling them in to sphere, and that hasn't stopped, that hasn't been terminated or even frozen in place. Of course, it's not enough for Washington to be able to do anything particularly hard-hitting, but it can continue fighting. Now, if you're looking at replenishment of missiles, no, of course not. Look, if we're looking at THAAD missiles, in 2 weeks, they can build about 5 of them. If we're looking at Patriot PAC-3s, in 2 weeks, they can build about 15 of them, maybe 20 if they're really trying. Again, that's not going to make any difference in the long run. Same thing goes with SA-6s or SA-3s. Even the Tomahawks. In 2 weeks, they may be able to put together another 5 to 10 Tomahawks. These missiles are put together by hand to maximize their cost, and thus maximize the profit in a cost-plus type of contract that the Pentagon loves. But so this is something that's just simply, it's not enough time. Washington, to replenish its stores, would probably need about 1.5 to 2 years at the rate that it's doing it right now. Even if it doubles production, it's not going to be much of a change, especially in a 2 week period.
You know, the last time we spoke, we brought out a big map. We were discussing the likelihood of boots on the ground, US boots on the ground in Iran via Khark Island. Do you think that's still an option for the US?
I wouldn't say any options are off the map, but we've seen one failed mission. Look, the attempt to the rescue mission, and it was great Hollywood writing as he rode off into the sunset on Easter, or the sunrise on Easter, and all that. Yeah, it makes great Pulp Fiction for the masses. But the reality is, this was a mission to grab, more likely to grab Iranian uranium, which, if there's even 450 kilos of that, and you count the containment facilities for the radiation, so you're probably looking something close to a ton. What we saw left over was 2 C-130s and the little boys that they carried in them, the little birds that they carried in them, that the Special Forces guys were riding in. But look, these planes were shot up because there's lots of holes in them from shrapnel and from small arms fire. But the point is, there isn't 100, 150 bodies lying around, so there had to have been more planes than that took the people out of there. More likely, there's at least 2 more, if not 3 more, C-130s that were on this landing strip. This was a big operation. It failed. It obviously failed very, very badly. I don't know how close they ever got to the base. I don't know how they were going to plan on moving 1,000 kilos, a ton of containment and uranium out. But whatever this mission was, it was an absolute failure. We may find out sometime in the next 5, 10 years somebody writes a book. Maybe not. That there were multiple casualties besides this? Absolutely, absolutely. How many casualties? We may never know. But it was a mission failure, obviously, because if they had succeeded, we would have known about it. Trump would have been parading the containment units. He would have been parading his great victory. He wasn't. It went silent. They made up a story about this great rescue. Nobody rescues one guy with 150 people. It doesn't happen. Especially the guys on a mountaintop. Normally what would happen is one of those cave hawks would fly in as fast as they can, drop a rope or a ladder or a sleigh down to the same thing as water extraction, and get the hell out of there as fast as possible. That's how missions are run. That's how rescue missions are run. You don't bring in basically an infantry company plus to do a rescue mission of this sort behind enemy lines.
And Stanislav, even after all the chaos of the past 24 hours, with the main focus being on the reopening of the Hormuz Strait so we can try to find some normality in the markets across the globe, but it's still no clearer on what's happening. There's so much contradiction, so much lack of clarity. It's being reported the passage will be reopened. At the same time, Trump is suggesting that this will somehow be coordinated with Iran. How do you see that working? And how do you see the fate of the Hormuz Strait in the coming hours and days?
Well, the straits were never fully closed. Let's begin with that. Those countries that were close to Iran, they were allowed through. The Chinese were allowed through. I don't think the Chinese ever paid anything to it. Other countries that were not heading to America and not heading to Israel with oil, countries that were told, if you didn't pay in dollars, we're letting you through. You had to pay the toll, but you were let through. So there were plenty of ships that were actually leaving. Pakistan was getting oil. Additionally, there was oil going through Oman to the ports on the Indian Ocean, and the Saudis were still exporting their oil through the Red Sea ports. So there was about, out of 26, 27 million barrels per day, there was probably about 8 or 9 million that were still going. And Iran too was exporting. In fact, one of the complaints coming out of Washington was that Iran was actually exporting more oil than it was before the conflict. Go figure. And the U.S. did remove sanctions off of Iranian oil as part of their conquest of Iran. The absurdity, of course, is hard to miss. But the main focus here on what's going to hit long term, no matter what happens, is the lack of gas. The gas facilities are destroyed. heavily damaged. Some people are saying absolutely destroyed. That means the fertilizer is destroyed. LNG is not going to be flowing for at least a year and a half to 2 years, maybe much longer. And that's going to be hits much worse than the oil, the lack of supply of oil. We're still looking at famine this year in Africa, in parts of Europe.
There you go.
At least in the lower classes in Europe, prices for food are going to skyrocket toward the end of the planting season, especially the first harvest. So we haven't dodged the bullet on this, and that's if the straits stay open. There's no guarantee that they will. It all depends on the U.S. Look, like the Iranians said, they already have one drone in the air from Israel. Israel is the spoiler here. Israel is now making noises about, let's build pipelines instead of going to the Gulf and going to the Straits of Hormuz. Let's build pipelines into Israel, and that way it'll all go out directly into the Mediterranean, which would explain Israeli desire that everything is damaged and destroyed around the Persian Gulf. If they think that they're going to be able to earn off of this.
So, like everything else, though, you can see what the Israeli state first policy is. You know, everything's good for them. And remember, the seizure of Venezuela's oil had to do with benefiting the Israeli state. It was the Israeli state that said for Trump to go ahead and take Venezuela. It's not for you that goes to the gas station to go and get gas. It's for the Israeli state to have unlimited flows of, gas. They're not running out of gas. Absolutely not. Even though you can definitely look at Tel Aviv and it looks like Gaza, but you see it's all part of a plan because it's to fuel their military, their IDF, their ships, their planes and everything. You see, like everything else, though, most people figured out, though, that it's not about MAGA. It's about make Israel great again, right? The Israeli state in Levant, ISIL, ISIS, and that's why Trump is a big, heavy supporter of ISIL, and he uses ISIS to come after you jakes. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Ghalib, said in a statement on Wednesday that the U.S. violated 3 clauses of the Iran 10-point ceasefire proposal. Noting that Trump said in an initial statement on the ceasefire that Iran's 10-point proposal was a good basis for negotiations, though the White House attempted to walk back, renege. White House Secretary Leavitt claimed that Iran's initial proposal published in Iranian media was thrown in the garbage, and that Tehran submitted a revised ceasefire outline. Bullshit, because they didn't agree to any ceasefire except the one that they handed in, which is the same one that they've been saying all along, that they want an end to the war completely. Non-compliance with the first clause of the 10-point proposal plan regarding ceasefire in Lebanon, a commitment that Prime Minister Shaif also explicitly referred to and declared as an immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and other regions effective immediately, which would include Gaza, by the way. Yeah, there has to be an end to the war against Gaza as well. Just pretty much an end to all these wars that are happening over there. An end to the aggression against Yemen as well. Entry of introducing drone into Iran's airspace. In other words, they have to cease and desist of that. In Sinjar Forest province, is clear violation of the clause prohibiting any further violation of Iran's airspace. Well, there we go. Denial of Iran's right to enrichment, which includes the 6th clause of the framework. So, like everything else, though, he didn't even come close on meeting those demands, which they're looking for an end to the war. So we know that that there's no end to the war. The war still continues. Iran says ceasefire must include halt to Israeli attacks against Lebanon. Iran Foreign Minister Agashi said on Wednesday that ceasefire deal with the U.S. must include halt to Israeli attacks against Lebanon, which have dramatically escalated since President Trump announced the truce Tuesday night. Passage of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz has been halted following the Israeli attacks against Lebanon. So like everything else, the strait's closed once again to all enemies of Iran and the region. Israeli state continues invasion of Lebanon as Gulf states report no strikes. There have been reports from Gulf countries there have been no reports of any Iranian attacks on infrastructure on Thursday after D.C. and Tehran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. The sides, however, are still far from reaching a sustainable deal, with Iran demanding that Lebanon be included in the truce framework. Israeli state Meantime, continues terror strikes inside the neighboring country, with the U.S. and the Zionist state insisting that Lebanon was never part of the deal. You know, and you already heard King Baby yesterday. Oh, that's not a part of the deal. How Hezbollah has been rising from the ashes. After failing to achieve a military breakthrough against Hezbollah, Israeli state shifted to a strategy of collective punishment, killing hundreds of Lebanese civilians. You know, because the Lebanese fucking government ain't protecting the people. The only fucking people that are actually fucking protecting Lebanon has been Hezbollah, and I've made that statement on numerous occasions. Their Lebanese government is nothing more than an American Zionist entity that runs that state. You could say that it's under the, you know, it's no different than the Syrian state for that matter. It's just nothing more than a U.S. proxy. Hezbollah is the only military that actually fucking protects its civilians. Because, hey, if they actually had a real fucking Lebanese government, they would have done something already. But Hezbollah is the actual government that does do something. On the 8th of April, only hours after the announcement of ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, Israeli warplanes launched wave of strikes described as unprecedented scale, intensity, and geographical reach. Roughly 100 raids carried out within 10 minutes. Hundreds dead and wounded, according to Lebanese health minister. Several strikes hit Beirut, including mixed neighborhoods and districts of Sunni majority, making a notable development in the scope of atrocious war against Lebanon. But like everything else, though, you know, Lebanon was not part of the deal. They had their fingers crossed when they made the deal. You can't trust your enemy. Never trust thine enemy. U.S. lawmakers call for a halt to Israeli aggression against Lebanon as Hezbollah retaliates. Well, they have a right to do retaliatory strikes. Hezbollah has launched a retaliatory strike following the deadly wave of Israeli terror attacks as U.S. lawmakers urgently call on the administration to enforce a regional ceasefire and halt the Israeli bombing of civilians in Lebanon. They are desperate to get that straight back. Hezbollah launched a rocket barrage towards illegal settlement lying on the northern side of the occupied territories in response to earlier deadly Israeli terror strikes. So, like everything else, though, the terrorism against Lebanon continues anyways. In southern Lebanon, we don't just cover the war, we try to survive reporting it. Yeah, because the Israeli state deliberately targets, you know, pretty much anybody who tries to give you any coverage. Israeli state killed 14 Lebanese journalists in deliberate attacks, making them just a part of its target list, just like they've been doing in Gaza. Does it sound surprising? News coverage has ceased to be just the transmission of events. It has become a personal confrontation with the heavy fear that accompanies me and the team in the back seat of the car. And that long silence broken only by messages from friends and family. Why do you go back? Aren't you afraid? Haven't all these years of reporting been enough? Well, like everything else, though, who's going to tell the truth? Who's going to be on the ground, right? I mean, that's all reason to be actual reporter, not like these pieces of shit that you call your mainstream news over here, who do nothing but whatever the government tells them to. Yes, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Yes, great Satan. We will support the military-industrial complex. Yes, great Satan. We will support Donald Trump, no matter what. You know, they have a fierce king and cruel lord that hangeth over them. And like everything else, though, we're seeing that there is no end to the war. Okay? This is the third woe that cometh quickly, right? You know, Revelation chapter 11, right? Because it's a very short little passage, but it tells you how quick it's going to come. Well, like everything else, though, well, we can see that we're here, you know. Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. They have it all in one verse, but I'm going to read some more verses than just that. The second woe has passed. Behold, the third woe cometh quickly, which is talking about World War III, which is why we're labeling it not just a war with Iran, but as World War III. How the war got started, because, you know, well, you always want to know, well, how does this war get started? You're seeing it. You know, started with the Gaza war and then just continued to expand. But once Iran was officially attacked, you know, which they've been attacked several times, but the bigger one was February 28th this year. So we went into World War III just before the Passover, and during the Passover, the so-called truce, which seemed to only last for like 3 hours. Now, like everything else, though, Iran has not retaliated that big, you know, except maybe they shot down a few drones of the Israeli state and other things. And they might have actually bombed Israeli state, but I'm thinking that they didn't even do that. You know, trying to still say, look, man, if they keep on attacking, you know, we have the right to respond. Now, like everything else, so they're saying that the strait has been closed due to the violations. So, it was really a 3-hour tour. It really wasn't even that long of a fucking ceasefire. And we've been telling you time and time again that these ceasefires are not going to hold, that these, you know, in which we could see what a ceasefire is. Fuck, Hezbollah and the Israeli state had one for a whole year. The Israeli state continued to fucking violate it, right? Until finally it was declared over once Iran was attacked, you know? So, same thing here, right? But like everything else, though, once this thing goes nuclear, which is the exciting part, well, you know that as well as I do, that other things have to be in place in order for that to happen. But this nuclear war, which is really what this is getting at, is that the nuclear war, well, it only takes 1 hour to destroy Babylon the Great with the missiles hitting everything. Verse 13, in the same hour there was a great earthquake, and a tenth part of the city fell. In the earthquake, 7,000 people were killed, and their rest were affrighted and gave glory to the power of heaven, meaning that, you know, they were saved scarcely, which I've seen illustrations of that in a dream. Means saved scarcely, that the whirlwind came. And it looked like I was caught up in it, but after praying and all that, found myself still alive, even though I thought that I got killed. Verse 12, they heard a loud voice from heaven saying unto them, come up here, and they ascended to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. And that is via the chariots, you know, and that's how fast it's going to be in that same hour. So, you know, like everything else, keep on striving, man. You know, we pray we're part of that hopeful elect, because this destruction is coming, and it's coming quickly. You know, things are going to continue to escalate. There will be no peace. This is total war. And this is the Most High's war. Shalom, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Brakatham, Jehovah elect, Shalom.